Keep your head to the sky. Keep your head to the sky. As long as you keep your head to the sky. When the midst of sorrow, you can see up and looking down. A brighter day, tomorrow will bring. Be optimistic. You hear the voice of reason telling you this could never be done. Optimistic. No matter how reality seems, just hold on to your Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to Life with Shenita's talk show. I am Shenita Connolly, and I am a little giddy tonight because I actually am a marriage champion at heart. And so I am so excited to have with me this evening 5 amazing couples to talk about their survival on this journey as one. So I just want to welcome you guys. I want you to sit back, relax. I really want you to take notes, if you can, so that you can put these suggestions, these sharing moments in your toolkit, so that you can use them later on this journey with you, whether you are married now or you aspire to be married one day. And so, again, welcome. How did I get to this place? I am a widow and have been for almost 5 years. Actually, Tuesday, June 30th, 2015, my husband had a heart attack and he passed away 3 weeks later from that heart attack. And so I am at this place as a result of that. And I am grateful to God that he has been walking with me through this journey of almost 5 years, and that I'm at a place where I'm comfortable enough to share my story, my journey, in hopes that it will help others. Life with Shenita is just that, the goal to help others decide to live a purpose-filled life, to, in spite of the challenges that they've gone through, to continue to thrive on this journey called life. I wrote my first book, Is Your House in Order, as a result of my husband and I not having all of our affairs in order. And so with that being said, I am on a quest to help others take the time to get their affairs in order so that they will not have to go through the journey that I have gone through, that they will take my advice and say, yeah, we need to take our time and get all of our affairs in order. So tonight, we are going to talk about surviving the marriage journey. And so without further delay, I am going to introduce our couples. And we have 5 of them. We have one that will be joining us a little bit later in the show, but you'll get to meet all of them. So we have, first I'll introduce them and then I'll bring them in all at one time. We have Team Primo. We have Brandon and Michelle Primo, who have been married for 6 years. We have Team Ware. That's Al and Sean, who have been married for 13 years. We have Team White. And that is Cliff and Jillian White, who have been married just recently for 30 years. And then we have Team Murray. That's Vince and Shenita, who have been married for 31 years, approaching 32 years. And then we have Team Ware. We have Rick and Vanessa, who have been married for 35 years. So I am sure that they have some information, some tools, some advice to share with you on how they survived this journey as one. So I am going to bring them in that order. Welcome.
Hello,
Good
good
evening. How are you?
evening, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
There we go.
Welcome. Welcome.
Hey, how
Hello,
are
Shenita.
you?
Hello, everyone.
Good. How are you guys?
Good.
Welcome. Welcome.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening. Good evening, Team Ware.
Oh,
Hi.
And so we have one more couple that's going to join us a little bit later, but just welcome. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you guys for deeming this worthy enough to spend the time necessary to share your journey with others in an effort to help them on their journey of surviving the marriage walk. Because, you and I know it's not an easy journey, but it's one that can be sustained. And so we know it can be because we have a couple on here that has been married for 35 years. So I'm sure there have been things that they've gone through on the roller coaster ride that they can share with others to help them as well as the rest of you all. So we're going to have a little fun to begin with. So I am going to ask the gentlemen, the husbands, a question. And so I want the husbands to answer this question. The question is, what is one good habit your wife tries to commit to, but she really doesn't quite do it? She doesn't quite get it right. What is one habit, a good habit, that your wife tries to commit to, but she just doesn't quite get it?
That's not fair.
And we do want you guys to walk away still as one after the show.
You know where I have to sleep tonight?
No,
that's
our,
But it's really good setup, so I just want to make sure y'all know that.
goodness.
So one good habit that your wife tries to commit to, but she really doesn't quite get it. One good habit.
I'll go first.
Okay.
I'm a little sensitive at times. As she grew up in a big household where they were like cutthroat in terms of playing games and everything. And one of her good habits she's trying to commit to is being a better winner, not being a sore winner. But she can talk plenty of yang when she's in the middle of beating me up. And I just look at her and I'm like, okay, the word of God says words that build up and not tear down. So, but every now and again she'll, put it to me a little bit more. But she's getting better.
That's good. That's good. I love it, Michelle. I love it. Okay, husbands, come on.
I have one. My wife is a orderly and very organized. I have no problem with her organizing her stuff, but sometimes she want to come and organize my stuff, and my things don't need organized because I'm the only one to know how this should go. So we constantly have that little challenge, but she's gotten better. Now she asks sometimes, but then again sometimes she doesn't. But since I understand her, I don't get all bent out of shape.
That's good. Those 35 years worked, huh?
So what?
Those 35 years helped you get to that place?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'll go next. My wife loves plants, and she wants to have a green thumb. And she tries so hard, but I have to come in and rescue the plants.
So that's a good thing.
Right.
So it's teamwork, and we have team listed for a reason on this screen. You get some brownie points, I'm sure. So Team Ware,
So I guess I'm last. Okay, so we both own a business together, a couple of business together. So running a business and being married can be a challenge in of itself. So my wife is a very sensitive person. Let me put it like that. She's very sensitive, and so especially when it comes to talking about finances and finances of a business. So we try to separate the personal from the business. And I'm one of those people that I like the numbers to be in order. I'm kind of very straight to the point with that. And so when I talk to her about business, sometimes she gets a little sensitive and thinks I'm being insensitive when I'm just, speaking the numbers. And, sometimes she can get a little bit in her feelings about that. So she committed to not trying to be so sensitive when we talk about financial business, whether it's personal or business, but especially with the business. And so she's getting better, but, she's still got a little ways to go. Because it's not personal.
Right. And I can attest to that because Winston and I, we had a business and we would work together, and I was probably more like you and he was probably more like her, more sensitive, but I was trying to make sure that we were straight laced when it came to business. And it was a challenge, but we made it through. So teamwork. So that's why I said together, everyone achieves more. When you work as a team, you balance each other out. And so I have one for the ladies.
Uh-oh.
Ladies, and this is fill in the blank. If I've asked him once, I've asked him 1,000 times, but if I can get him to admit to it on this show, maybe I can get my husband to stop doing. So if I've asked him once, I've asked him 1,000 times, but if I can get him to admit to it on this show, maybe I can get my husband to stop doing. What is that, ladies?
I'll go. Leaving tissue in his pants pockets when I do the laundry, because when he leaves it in his pocket, I'll wash. If I'm lucky enough, the tissue is balled up and I can just put it in the trash. But 9 times out of 10, the clothes go from the wash to the dryer. The tissue comes out of his pocket. I take the clothes out of the dryer, and where is the tissue?
Everywhere.
When I say everywhere, I take it out of the dryer and the tissue is on the floor. So that creates more work for yours truly.
Aren't you supposed to check the pockets before you put stuff in?
See, come on now.
Did you just say teamwork?
Teamwork. And we're at 13 years, so I'm gonna need you to check them pockets.
Thank you.
She said sure.
But at least he admits it sometimes. But there's a caveat. Why don't you just? Yes,
right.
We are.
Right. Well, I'm glad y'all still on the journey together. It didn't take you out. All right, next, wife.
I'll go. If this brother, my dear beloved, stop putting plastic utensils in the sink, throw them away. Throw it in the trash.
Good for about a couple wash.
No.
Especially if I'm gonna reuse it. You got to save money.
Throw them in the trash.
Throw them away. Husband, throw them away. Throw them away. Next husband.
I can go next.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mike. I'm sorry.
This was a really hard one for us being where we are, but our daughter is the youngest of the 3 kids we have, and my husband spoils her beyond spoiled. I just say that to give you the caveat. She moved out and left her dog here, and she has now bought 2 more dogs and still has not picked up her dog, which my husband takes care of, and it has become his dog. And he keeps saying, "Oh, that's okay." It's all right. But it's not okay because it's not our dog and we did not purchase that dog. So maybe on this show, he'll give her dog back.
Nope.
I could not be married to Vince. I can tell you that right now. If there are any dog loving men out there that think that I'm a great catch, because I am, if you love dogs and they're gonna be inside the house, I'm not a good catch.
Yes.
No dog, the dog is not in the house. She's definitely not in the house. He believes that she's coming in, and that's our constant conversation: is that she's not coming in.
No.
Okay.
Last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Ware. I'm sorry, Vanessa.
I was gonna pass because I can't even think of which one I want to tell you about. Oh my goodness! I think the thing that bothers me the most since the first team mentioned. We have dinner, and he and my daughter will put the dishes in the sink with the food in it, and I hate it. I'm like, please throw away the food. And
Right.
my husband thinks because he helps with the dishes, it's okay to do that, but I have a problem with it most of the time.
So Rick, when we leave this show today, we're gonna work on those little things that aggravate or agitate each other. So all of us are gonna walk away and we're gonna work on strengthening or getting better with those little things. So can we commit to that?
Well, you had the same question for them too. So it's mutual.
Tip the tab, right?
It's mutual. No, it's mutual.
So I just wanted to break the ice a little bit with some fun. So my manager is just awesome with ideas. So we want to thank Katasha for those questions. So let's jump right into some discussion on how to survive this thing called marriage. And I want to start out with one question. And I think of the movie, Tyler Perry's movie, Why Did I Get Married? I want one of you guys to tell me, why did you get married? And one couple. Let's go with the 35-year couple. Tell us, why did you guys get married 35 years ago?
Wow.
Well, you see, we got a lot. Well, basically, for as myself is concerned, I had reached the age about 22, 23, and my mother and I had that kind of conversation. She said, son, you don't finish school by that time, you're going to be changing your mind. You may think about getting married. And as time went on, I did. I started really wanting to settle down and what have you. And my testimony to this is I did pray for a God-fearing woman, and all that materialized because we was at the same school and we had the same class. So we had a project together and we started dating, and one thing led to another, and God revealed to me this is the wife that He had for me in my life. And basically, I thank God for that, because I kind of remind myself of Job, some of the experience calamities that Job had, and we had them as well. But the difference is, my wife didn't tell me to do what Job's wife told him to do. My wife prayed the prayer of faith. She stuck with me, and God moved and blessed me. And I know that I have the right woman because of the tests and the trials that we have gone through in the last 35 years. So I don't have any doubt, and I'm looking forward to the golden years, to the 50th, because my daughter promised us a big golden wedding. So
You want to make sure she does just that.
Exactly.
Keeps her word. So that's awesome. You prayed for a God-fearing woman, and I heard you say you talked with your mother. And that's key. I think, sometimes people today, or young people today, don't value the wisdom that their parents bring to the table. So to hear you say that more than 35 years ago, that you listened to your mom, you had that conversation, and God bless you with the desires of your heart. And I'm sure Vanessa can say the same, that she's grateful to have you in her life as well. So that's a blessing. So thank you for that. And the next question that I have is, what 3 attributes a couple must have to maintain or sustain their marriage? And I want Team Primo. I know you guys have been married the least amount of years, but can you share 3 attributes you think would be necessary for any marriage to sustain itself?
Start.
I'll start.
Mhm.
Okay, all right. Number one for us is big, and it may seem cliche, but when it comes to love, and when I say love, God's love is not the world's love, but God's love, because it allows you to really understand what love is and to really see the humility. You know, a lot of times we have a whole list of stuff we want from our spouse and all these different things. But in love, you have humility, you have patience, you have kindness, you have all of these things. But understanding the sacrifice, the commitment, all of that. And when you really truly understand love, it goes beyond an idea of love, but it really takes the sacrifice, it takes the commitment, and really understanding that covenant. But God's love, and He said, love the Lord thy God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So if you fully and truly love God and committed to Him, then you'll be committed to your spouse as you are for yourself. You love yourself and you love your spouse. So love, number one, we would say, has really true love, genuine, authentic love.
The next one, I would say, is communication. And that's cliche as well, but our communication, when we were dating, the Lord graced us to abstain from sex until we got married. So all we had was our conversation. And we got to know each other at a very deep and intimate level. And what that wound up doing is just taking us deeper into some uncomfortable areas. I found out very early on that I wasn't as transparent as I thought I was. And quite honestly, I would share things with her and communicating with her at times that just, it felt like I was jumping off of a cliff because I was embarrassed to say certain things and feel certain ways. So those levels of communication have really taken us deeper into our love and our marriage, so that we know one another. She is the first woman that I've ever known in my life where if we were separated in 2 different places at the same time and somebody asked me to speak on her behalf, I could tell you the nuances. I could tell you where she would lean one way or another, you know, with regards to certain things. So that's definitely second in terms of communication that builds the intimacy. And then, of course, the last one is sex. Sex is very, very important. And that love and that communication leads to that.
Right on into
leads right on into
intimacy.
that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
So the attributes is agape love, communication,
Yeah.
and the ability to physically connect with each other in the sexual way. Yes?
That intimacy.
Absolutely.
Yes. And not just sexual intimacy, but just that closeness, that close relationship, which allows you to be free in a sexual relationship with your spouse.
I love it.
Honesty,
And
transparency.
I can say, as a widow, I totally agree with you. And that's the one of the things that I miss more than many other things is that intimacy that Winston and I shared. And so while you guys have that opportunity, cherish it, because when it's gone, it's gone. And so while you have that, I think people need to really value that. All of that you just said, the love, the communication, the physical aspect, all of that, value that. So thank you for that. So the next question is, looking back, do you feel that you have a better understanding of your vows? Team Ware, 13 years. Looking back, do you feel now, today, that you have a better understanding of your vows?
Absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. One of the vows that actually always speaks to us is in sickness and health, because both of us have had some pretty serious health scares, and a lot of times when you love, it's hard to love someone through agape love and God's love when the other is going through something serious. That's when you know that the love is real and that it's godly, because it doesn't matter whether you have a perfect health of 10 or, fighting cancer or heart disease. And so that is the one that sticks out the most for me, is that in sickness and health, because there have been times in both of our lives that we were pretty ill and always there for each other. So definitely have a better understanding of those words, because we were able to put them in action where that love is just strong and deep.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And, speaking of, major health issues, Shenita, my heart always goes out to you when you tell me about what happened to your husband and that experience. And I think you and I talked about this before a while ago. I have heart disease. I've had a heart attack, had two heart attacks, and quadruple open heart surgery. So, and Sean has had breast cancer, and, not just any breast cancer, but triple negative breast cancer, which is deadly, with African-American women of color. So again, we were able to get through that. But I think, what the other team wears said, the gentleman, about God and what God put together, let no man take, put asunder. And so, our journey is that, we got married, divorced, and remarried. And, when I think about my vows, I prayed for a wife too. I was at that point, like you, brother, where I was in my life, and I had just got out of a dysfunctional relationship, maybe about 8 months earlier. And I was just at a point to where I was about 40 and I was just tired, and I prayed. That was the first time I ever prayed to God to bring me a wife. I had never done that before. I always tried to do it on my own. And so after I got myself together, I sat down and I prayed. And after I prayed, Sean came into my life.
Praise God.
I could literally say God brought her to me. So when we got divorced, because I went astray and let the world catch up to me a little bit. And while we were separated, I was so unhappy and so miserable in what I was doing and who I was with. And then I just remember one day just going in my closet again, crying and praying. And a voice came to me, said, "Go get your wife and go get your wife." So literally, and I was tripping because I was like, it's weird because I literally heard a voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Small voice.
Yeah.
The whisper. Yeah.
The voice. It wasn't anybody like I'd never heard before, but I heard the voice.
What?
And then I just, I went and did that. So when I think about vows, I think about what God put together. You can go against that, but eventually it's going to catch up with you.
Yes, yes. And I love your story. Team Ware, I love your story. I'll never forget having you guys, come and speak at the Black Marriage Day event back in 2012, September 2012. And I remember the impact that you're sharing, your transparency of, the infidelity and the marriage and the divorce and the remarriage. And I had the opportunity to celebrate your renewal of vows with you guys some years ago. And that was so special to me. And so every time I hear a couple that has a challenge in that area, I always want to connect. I'm always trying to connect you, right? Thank you guys for just allowing God to use you, and for you, Al, for listening to the still small voice and praying and moving in that way. Because sometimes we hear it, because I heard it in 2018 when I was ready to love again. And God said, don't commit to that man. And I did, and it didn't turn out right. So I think it's very important for us when we hear the voice of God to obey, regardless of what we want. He may say no, but your heart says yes, and we have to obey. So I'm glad that you obeyed him and you went back and got your wife.
Yeah. And then let me add, that same voice that spoke to him was the same voice that said, let him in.
Yes.
All right.
It was,
Because you had decided that it was over.
it was over. Like I was having like a for real conversation, like, God, do you understand like what he did, how he hurt me, blah, 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 blah. We're having this conversation. And God just stood firm and says, but did you hear what I said?
Yeah, that's it.
That's the relationship that I have with God. He was like, yeah. I was there, been there, saw it, got the t-shirt, but did you hear what I said? And so that same voice that was stern with him was the same voice that was stern with me to say, let him in. Just hear what he has to say. I promise you, you will see the God in him that I have placed in him. So you can see. And that's exactly what happened.
And I think so many women probably hears that voice or have heard that voice and they ignored that voice and they stayed separated from that spouse who they were assigned to. I do think that we're assigned to people for reasons, for specific reasons, for specific periods. And that, I realized my period was through the duration of my husband's life, and I was able to help him see many of his goals and in ministry and outside of ministry. And so I'm grateful for that, because I never would have thought that I would have been married to him. He wouldn't have been my type. But when God says that's who you're assigned to, we have to acknowledge that and walk in it.
Yeah.
Because there are some things that we can help them through.
Right.
Yeah. And so my next question is to Team Murray. What are some things you do as a couple to make sure that you stay connected? What are some things you do as a couple to make sure you stay connected?
You want me to start first? Some of the things that we do to stay connected, and I think is important for all couples, is to be okay with allowing each other to grow as people and grow in a marriage. If you can grow in a job, you can grow in your Christian walk, you can grow in your marriage. It's okay to watch each other grow. It's actually a beautiful place to be. It gives you some assets and some goals to aspirate for as well. One of the other things that I like about Vince and I is that we check in. We got an eye check in, where we really check in and look into each other and make sure that we connect and see if each other are okay. Because sometimes our men are not okay, but they want us to think that they're strong and they're kings and they're in his image. But if God wants us to love him, he wants us to love on our husbands as well. So it's very important that you check in with one another, where you put everything aside, the finances, the kids and trips and businesses, and you have some real time where you just kind of spend a few minutes just looking into each other, because God will speak and give you what you need to encourage each other in.
Yes.
And another thing is being careful about transparency. Sometime in these new marriages today, and no disrespect intended, we get caught up in them friends and buying things and getting our nails done, and we got side money and things like that. And we don't understand that we're giving the enemy a foothold in our marriage with small tidbits of deception. Transparency, when he said be naked and not ashamed, before him, he meant that for a reason, because that was the level of relationship he wanted with us. And we should have that with our spouses. And I'm not saying like you just got to run and tell them everything, but there should be no one you go share your good news with before you share it with your spouse. When I get excited about something happens or something happens for him, he's the first person I want to tell, or the first person I want to ask for advice other than, prayer. But, we abandon that sometime without realizing it. So we're really careful about those three things to make sure that we check in with one another and that we're transparent, being careful about small deceits, in your marriage. And it really helps us to love without conditions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love it. Vince, I know you had something you wanted to share, so I know you want to add to that.
Well, she kind of, you know, hit everything that I was going to say. But as for men, I have learned to, express my feelings because we're not taught that.
Right.
We have to be, because it's a sign of weakness if you is an emotional guy.
Mhm.
So I have learned to share my emotion. Like if I'm happy about something, if I'm sad, far as if a loved one passed, I can actually shed some tears without being judged.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
we check in throughout the day. It's like whether we go on like our breaks, whatever, we check in throughout the 24 hours. And then when we get home, we share our experiences at work with people we come across and what they, how did it affect us? And we just remain humble that we are allowed to be involved in other people's lives based on how we share with each other.
And that's so important. The connection, the sharing, the pillow talks. I miss that. And I hope that you guys value that in any couple that's out there, that you value the time that you have with your mate while you have it. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you said connect, looking into each other's eyes, allow the men to be vulnerable. My husband was so sensitive and he would cry. I mean, he would cry. He cried at our reception and he was telling the audience how God took one angel from him when his wife passed and gave him another angel. He just never imagined that he would have been blessed in that way. And so, I stood right there next to him and rubbed his back. Nobody knew that I was rubbing his back to get him through that moment. But, I wanted to make sure that I helped him through that moment because I know that that was really important to him. And so we just have to know, especially as wives and the women, the ladies, what they need. And we have to be attentive to that as well as we expect them to be attentive to us. It's a teamwork. So I appreciate, that feedback from you guys. We have, let's see, another question that I want to ask. Team White is not quite ready yet, but I want you guys to share. Intimacy can be expressed in several ways, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, earlier. Do you feel that sexual intimacy is important in the marriage and is sometimes underrated? I, discovered this a few years ago that there were a lot of sexless marriages. Now, I understand sexless marriages if it relates to illnesses and things of that nature, but I never knew that there were so many sexless marriages. So when you think of intimacy, sexual intimacy, is it important or is it underrated or overrated? What do you guys think? Let's start with Team Primo.
Oh, wow. I definitely believe that sexual intimacy is underrated as far as marriage is concerned. It's overrated for single people who invest their time. I mean, they build entire lifestyles around it. Friday nights and getting ready to go to the club, all just to find somebody to hook up with. And it begins to be a large portion of their life and existence. And then when we get into marriage, leading to what you said about the sexless marriages, is that tendency just dives on a sharp curve, and we don't invest that time and that effort in order to stay active sexually and in intimacy with one another. I always tell people, especially single people, and they ask about marriage, and everybody always exclaims, "Oh, it's hard work." You're either going to be doing two types of work in marriage: maintenance or repair. And you want to be always in maintenance mode, keeping that romance there. One of the reasons why I married her is because God began to speak to me about her very early on. Because this is for both of us. We've been married and divorced previously, and I didn't want to do it again unless I heard from God. And when people ask or they see me do romantic things, that's all the Holy Spirit of God. There is not enough Superman or whatever it is in me, and she is the perfect motivator. Look how beautiful she is in order to have me be at that place consistently, but it comes from God. And he, you know, it reminds me of the scripture that talks about the wife of your youth. And he always refreshes me and keeps me at that place where my eyes belong to her. I'm attracted to her consistently. And I think a lot of times as men, we can bargain away our eye gate. And that causes us to lose attention on the one that we should be focused on, so that we use that energy that God has given us in order to steward it right back into our lives again.
Awesome. I'm gonna add Team White to the screen. I'm sorry. Team White just joined, and I think her husband is joining via the phone. Jillian?
Hello.
Hello, Jillian. How are you?
Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello. I'm fantastic. Just enjoying this conversation and couldn't wait to get my husband and chime in. Can you guys hear?
We can. If you turn the phone a little bit so we can see Cliff, you may want to put the phone on the other side. There we go. That's good. Hey, Team White.
That's cute.
Hey.
So, for joining. I know that his work schedule, didn't allow him to be here earlier. So, but we thank you guys for being here. And let me ask this question while we have you guys, because I know this hour it goes by really fast. So let me ask you guys, Team White, how do you guys handle conflict as a couple?
Ooh.
How do you handle conflict?
How do we handle conflict as a couple? Let me go first. So for Cliff and I, again, we've been married for 30 years. And we've had to learn how to handle conflict through the years. So I will tell you, at this point in our marriage, we first of all recognize that we are not always going to agree on everything, because we are individuals.
Right.
We have our own opinions about certain situations, and we are mature enough to understand that it's okay that we don't always agree. So that's basically where we start. And then respectfully, we always try to meet somewhere in the middle.
I love it. And Cliff, can you add to that?
That's pretty much.
I love it. And I'm hoping that Cliff has something
I do
to add.
everything I can.
Yes. Go ahead, baby.
Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
I do everything I can to respect my wife's position, and she does all that she can to respect my position. Being married as long as we have, it's a few things that we don't agree upon, but we rise above it, and we try to we do everything we can to get to I like to say, to get to the other side of the conflict, because sometimes we can't, but we do everything we can to get past it. And we get past it. Being married as long as we have. It's, my wife's actually my best friend, so we do very well in certain situations.
I love it. I love it. That's it. I heard you say we respect each other and the position. A lot of times the Bible talks about the role of a wife and the role of a husband. And I know that the common thread with all of us is that we all believe in the word of God, and we try to operate from that place. And so there is order, in this institution. And we have to respect that order according to the word. And that, when we respect the order and we understand the order, we respect it, we love with that agape love, then it's easy to navigate through. I'm not saying that it's, peaches and cream 24 hours a day, because it's not. But if we put things in perspective, we can navigate and get through them, as he said, on the other side of the conflict. So, because they're going to come. And for us, Winston and I, we dealt with the majority of our conflict was dealing with blended family. And so, you know, those were challenging moments and challenging times. But every time we had a challenge and we would go to my brother David, he would send us back to 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And I think I've said that a number of times. And he would say, verses 4-8, are you operating in love? He would always direct us back. We were talking about that today, earlier this morning. And he said, you know, chapter 13, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, 4-8. And that was the theme of our wedding. Love is. And every table had whatever love signified on it from that scripture. And so we just have to remember that, to hold that near and dear in our relationship, so it helps us sustain the marriage, the bond, the commitment, the three-strand cord that we committed to. So I appreciate that. I want you guys to answer this. It doesn't matter which couple. I actually would like for all of you guys to do a quick answer. Is divorce an option for you when you're faced with challenges that you seem to can't get over? Is divorce an option? Yes, no, and we're going to keep it flowing.
I like to speak to that. No, divorce is not an option for us. We came from parents that divorced. His parents divorced. Mine separated, never remarried, remained separated all their lives. The first time when we got married, I remember Ricky saying, there will be no divorce. And I say, so if I leave, I can come back? He said, yeah, there will be no divorce. And I say that because when God created this institution, he did it for a purpose. Before ministry even came into existence, this was the first institution built. The world is trying to live marriage life the way God intended for a man and woman to. And there, you know, the divorce decree, none of that was a part of it. And we shouldn't even think about it as an option when we're thinking about it from God's perspective. So if this is a holy institution, there is no room for that. And if we're really, truly serious about pleasing God in our life and having the type of marriage that we desire, then we will go back to those attributes that the couples talked about just before, about commitment, loving commitment, forgiveness, some other areas we didn't talk about, honesty, those type of things, being transparent, and that communication. If we're not there, then we can't, get to that point where our marriage can flourish. But again, I would just say the divorce is not. I mean, if you come into this institution with the right mindset, knowing that I plan to please God in this, then you're going to do all you can to make it work. I know that's not always realistic in a lot of situations, but it's really about loving God first. When we love God, then we can better love ourselves and love others. And that would include that spouse that God actually gave us. Even in situations if we marry for the wrong reason, I believe that God can still mend, and he can work with that if we're willing and able. So,
Amen.
Amen.
And divorce was not an option for Team Connolly. It was until death do us part, and we meant that. And so I'm hoping that there's some couples out there that are on the verge of divorce, and that they will rethink that thing, and they will reconsider their decision to exit the relationship, and get together with counselors if need be, pray and talk to God, and work through and make a decision. Divorce is not going to be it. We're going to work through this, just like we work on a job. We work on a job and we want to get promotions. We want to climb to the top of the ladder. And we do whatever it takes many times to get to the top of the ladder, but we will not make that sacrifice for our marriage that we committed to the person that we said we love.
Yeah.
So we have to really think about that in that perspective. Why am I going to work really hard over here for this, but I won't work really hard to make this work?
right.
Let me move
Shenita,
out of the way. Okay.
I just think that, when you think about the vows that you stand before God and before your spouse and that you say, why not have those vows be tried? You know what I'm saying? Trust it and be true. Why are we saying it if we can't live it? And if we say we love God and we're becoming that three-chord strand, then we have to look at the fruit of the Spirit. We have to look at 1 Corinthians. If we haven't used all those tools that God provided us, if we can't walk in forgiveness, but we want to call ourselves humble,
Wow.
I mean, then do we really love God? Do we really love our spouses? But at the same time, trust those vows. Try them vows. That's what I could say about this right here. Try, trusted, and true. Our
I
vows are
love it.
still delivered in God.
I
Yeah.
love it. And I
I would
think
like
about
to add too.
Please.
I was thinking, the Bible says, "In all thy getting, get understanding."
Mhm.
And I believe many couples don't really understand. This is our second time around, and we both discussed the fact that we didn't really understand. And it has to be an understanding of what this covenant is, what
Right.
the institution of marriage is. What does God say about
Yes.
this, your marriage? What does God say about you as individuals and you together?
Yeah.
And being able to work it in your marriage and the support. I believe a lot of couples are afraid to ask for help. They don't know where to begin. And there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of pride, there's a lot of rebellion, there's embarrassment, there's hurt, there's one of the couples
Shame.
said unforgiveness, shame, a lot of things attached to people coming together in a marriage. But in all thy getting, get understanding. And when you really understand your God first, what marriage truly is, and understand each other, then you can begin on the right path. And like you said, Shenita, we say, how bad you want it. We got to fight for this because divorce is not going to be an option. We've been through it. We've seen the consequences of it. The blended family situations. There's so much we can talk about, but divorce is not an option. It's not in God's will.
Right.
now,
Can I add something to that? Just really quick.
Team Ware was getting ready to say something because I know they represent that divorce and remarried situation. And I know we're going to have to do a part 2 to this. So I want to get them and then I want to get Team White real quick because we're at 7:52, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
I agree with everything that everybody said, but I'm gonna be a little controversial, because I too have been married before, and I was young when I got married. And like I said before, it's the first time when I married Sean. It was the first time I asked God for a wife. So at 18, I didn't understand marriage. Honestly, I married the wrong person. That wasn't the person that God intended for me to be with. Because if that was the case, then I wouldn't be with who I am with.
Right.
So I think that a lot of times with couples out there, especially ones that are listening in, what happens sometimes if you are with the person who you're supposed to be with, and that who is God intended you to be with, sometimes when you face trials and tribulations and you don't know how to deal with them, you end up giving up too early. But there is a place, I believe, for divorce, because if it wasn't, I wouldn't be with Sean now. I would still be in that marriage that wasn't meant for me to be in. And it's not something, because I stayed in that marriage. I mean, I was married for 18 years, separated for 3 of those years. And so, but a lot of those years, I knew I was staying in it just because of the kids. I knew I had married the wrong person. I was 17 when I got out of high school and went in the Army when I turned 18 in September, got married in March that next year. I was AIP, finishing basic training. So I knew I didn't any idea what I was doing. And I know that God, that wasn't the person that God intended me to be. And I know even after all these years, that's the case. So I think that couples that are facing trials and tribulations now, like you said, there's help out there, there's therapy, there's your pastor, or whatever the case may be, whatever kind of help you need to get, then you need to get that before you give up on it. Because I think now people are too quick.
Yeah.
And the last thing that I'll say, because I know we're pressed for time, is that people out there that are struggling and having problems, the one thing that I found that helps out in our situation, we talk about it a lot, is humility. And being okay with, like the gentleman said, Mr. Murray was saying that You can show that you have emotion, and you can show that you have compassion without thinking it's a weakness. It's okay to let your wife have the last word. It's okay to do that and not feel like as a man you're being meek or you're being weak or letting your ego or your pride. Love is God. God is love. Love is all things. And without humility, you're just going to react to your emotions without any self-control.
Right.
Awesome. And I want Team White to chime in real quick. I'm sorry. Just a minute. Can you or
All right.
Cliff share something? Cliff, any parting words?
Real quick, yes. Divorce is not an option for us. Oh, okay. Go ahead, honey.
Okay.
She wanted you to have a parting word. Divorce is not an option for us. Everyone has spoke in so much detail. We feel the exact same way. I will reiterate again, like for anyone getting married or going through just now getting married, especially in this current state of what's going on, like find a good church home where there's married couples that can support you. Join a marriage ministry. If you can't find one, reach out to us. We live in Las Vegas, and for us, even being here, and although we're very strong in our marriage, we still have challenges too. So I would encourage everyone to find your support system. Marriage is definitely a lot of work, and you can't do it by yourself. You need help.
Yes. And I always say find a couple or somebody that can honestly mentor you and help you get to the next level in your relationship, because we were really young when we got married. We were 20 years old, and we had mentors from age 20 to 30, and I had another mentor from age 30 to 40. So it helps when you surround yourself with people with the same values in your marriage that you have.
Exactly.
And I know that we're short on time, and I'm trying to manage this time, so I have 3 minutes. But what I want you guys to do, because I believe in the power of love, and so and I know Jillian and Cliff, you're not going to be able to do this, but I want you guys to turn to your mate and give them a kiss and show the world unashamed how much you love your spouse, because I think that it will bless them. So would you guys just show some love to each other so the audience can see that love?
Shenita, can I say one thing real quick? It's very important that married couples know each other's love language.
Yes.
I agree.
It changes, and if you don't know over the years, if you still think it's the same one, then you're going to end up in that marital conflict.
Yes.
You might have, receiver of gifts and words of affirmation, but then it might change of physical touch. That means holding hands, hugging, walking, open the car door, all the things that lead up to intimacy. That's all.
I love it. You guys are amazing, and I know that we're going to have part 2, so we can go deeper. But I just want to say that I thank you guys for sharing your heart and sharing the tips and the things that helped you guys continue your journey and to sustain your marriage. And I hope that the audience will put these tools in their toolkit and they will use them as appropriately necessary on this journey, and that they will reach out to you guys and connect as accountability partners. So we thank you guys. I love you. Remember, God loves you most and he loves you best. And we thank you guys for tuning in to this weekly show. And next Tuesday, we will have a celebration of my husband's life with all his favorite male friends and family members. So it's going to be an exciting show, and they will just come in and we'll just kind of have some fun celebrating his memory. So I just want to say thank you again to you amazing couples. And thank you for watching. And I love you guys. And you have a wonderful evening.
You
Same
too.
to y'all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
You guys. Bye.
Bye.
So thank you guys so much for watching. And I hope that you were blessed by this broadcast and that your marriage will continue to be sustained on this journey as one. And we'll see you guys on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. for a night of celebration, moments of reflections, peace, love, and joy. Take care.